What's up, everyone? Happy Sunday. I am Logan Shinholzer. Whoa, you just cut out. There you go. We're back. And I am here with Adine. Adine, what's up, man?
Hey man, what's happening?
So Adine is my accountant, and we talk very regularly about all of this PPP stuff, EIDL stuff, and it all confuses the hell out of me. And thank God I got Adine because Adine always walks me through what's going on in layman's terms. So I figure instead of just keeping this between the two of us, we're going to start to make this just a regular every day at 7 p.m. You know, the government changes 8 times a day, so every day at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're just going to kind of hop on here and talk about the latest in all of this stimulus stuff and kind of give Adine the platform to let all of us small business owners that have no idea what's going on. So
Yeah, changes 8 times a day, I think, is exactly what's going on. That's been the theme here for the past 2.5, 3 weeks. Obviously, you and I have been talking about almost daily about all of these changes, occurrences, and it's just been silly. And from what's going on with the actual law, what's in there versus what the Small Business Administration has done versus what all the small and local banks as well as the big banks have done here with the PPP program has just been a fun and tongue-in-cheek fun experiment and just a process that nobody was ready for. Nobody still is ready for. So we're all just kind of taking one day at a time. And of course, the biggest news for this weekend is from last week on the 16th, the SBA announced that their original program, so now we have the original program, ran out of money. They basically exhausted it, gave out all the loans, all the grants, all the money that they had. And pretty much all weekend long, the Treasury Department and the leaders of Congress have been going back and forth about doing 2.0 and creating more money to be able to fund some of these programs for the rest of us who haven't gotten the funding and the stimulus that was promised to us 2.5 weeks ago.
So what's the latest on that? Because I know we had the, what was it, 349 billion for the original PPP. And I know for me, I didn't get anything, but I got my EIDL advancement or whatever you want to call that. So what's the latest on the PPP 2.0?
Yeah, so what they're talking about is coming up with another 300 to 350 billion dollars. So this first one was 349. They're essentially going to double that. And now, of course, the conversations are about where does this money go? And one side of Congress wants more money for hospitals, healthcare workers, all the stuff that makes sense, as well as testing. So what they're saying is about 100 billion, and of course, nothing's clear. Is it 100 billion on top of the 350, or is 100 a part of that 350? So that's what 100 billion is going to be earmarked for. And so what we're talking about is about 250 to 350 billion, depending on how this shakes out, for additional funding vis-a-vis the PPP loan program. That's been the most popular one. Last thing I read is 50 billion of that is going to go back to the SBA towards disaster loans. So that was what was originally the EIDL program. So they're going to fund 50 billion towards that. And then the rest is all going to be allocated towards PPP, which is the forgivable payroll loan program that everybody and their moms has been trying to get a piece of.
Right.
And it's been an interesting process. Learned a lot about it. I know a lot of people have been frustrated. So if you've essentially, there's been two divides, right? So there's the big banks, big nationals, and there's been your local, credit unions, smaller community banks. And what you've seen is the community banks and the credit unions have actually been processing the loans. They've actually been funding out of their own reserves, been funding their customers with these PPP loans, and then trying to push them through the SBA to get them approved. Where on the flip side, the big banks, all the nationals, they've been actually unofficially favoring bigger companies. So The math on the original one was that the average loan size was $227,000. To get there, your average monthly payroll would have had to have been a little over $90,000. So, I mean, for most of us, $90,000 in payroll, most of us don't get to that in a year,
That's pretty
let
big.
alone in a month.
Right.
So that tells you the discrepancy between who the big banks have been funding versus the local community banks. And so with 2.0, we're going to see if the government actually steps in and adds more filters, more limits, and how they work through processing 2.0, and if they, of course, there's a backlog of applications. I can't remember. I read it somewhere earlier today in terms of how many. I think it was either 80,000 or 800,000. I can't remember how many applications are outstanding to receive PPP money. And so
yeah, so I hear you on that one. So to kind of wrap all this stuff up, so right now, are applications, are banks accepting them still? Just like banking on the fact that they think this is going to pass, or?
I've heard both sides of that. So again, most of the big banks have been sending emails. A lot of my clients with BB&T, SunTrust, Truist have been getting emails saying, "Hey, get your paperwork ready, but we're not taking applications."
Okay.
Wells Fargo, same deal. Wells Fargo has been behind the 8 ball this whole time. I haven't checked Bank of America. Most of the smaller ones, in terms of credit unions, local banks, they usually have like a central email address that they want you to send your stuff to. So get your things together, send them in, follow up with your local relationship person to make sure that they got it. Generally, your person at the branch has no oversight of this. They don't have any access to it. But again, making that call, being proactive, go ahead, get your documents in. Like, it can't hurt to get them in. And worst case scenario, nothing happens because nothing's happened so far. So what do you have to lose?
Right.
And be on the lookout for any other changes or any other forms that need to be signed.
All right, cool. So it sounds like we got 2.0 coming through. Get all your stuff in, and hope that you get picked in the second round if you weren't in the first round.
Yeah, and I think for our next one, we'll talk about some of the other options available. If you aren't interested in PPP anymore, or don't think you're going to get it, some other options you might have in terms of tax credits, local options. So there's more out there. Again, you just got to know where to look, who to call, and how to get some of these other funds out there.
Cool. All right, Dean, thank you.
All right, man.
See you tomorrow.
See you.